O mundo de 2045 será muito diferente do que imaginamos hoje. Seremos cada vez menos carne e mais máquina. E o conhecimento humano vai explodir e se tornar virtualmente infinito. Nossa consciência poderá ser armazenada como num pendrive e poderemos criar corpos sob medida. Seremos praticamente imortais. A humanidade estará mais perto da ideia que fazemos hoje de Deus. Quem defende essas ideias, que podem parecer loucura, é o engenheiro, futurólogo e visionário Raymond Kurzweil. O homem que tem certeza de que verá o futuro, porque tem planos de viver para sempre. So, 2045, the singularity, what happens?
Right now we have a lot of artificial intelligence, but it's narrow. Every time you send an email or you get an electrocardiogram, it comes back with an automatic analysis, there are intelligent weapon systems, automatic detection of credit card fraud, computer-assisted design of products, robotic assembly of products, just-in-time inventory systems. I could list 100 applications of software doing things that used to require human intelligence at human levels, but it's narrow. When we get to 2029, it won't be narrow anymore. It will have the full range of human intelligence, and will be a very powerful combination because you'll be able to combine the subtlety and pattern recognition powers of human intelligence with ways in which machines are already powerful, more powerful than human intelligence. Machines can remember billions of things. We're hard-pressed to remember a handful of phone numbers. You can access all of human knowledge with the machine. The human brain can't find, anything the way Google can find it. So that'll be a very powerful combination. The machine portion of the human-machine civilization will be growing exponentially. It's going to double in power every year, and even that rate is getting faster. The biological portion remains fixed. But it's not a matter of machines here, humans here. It's really one civilization. Our machines have always been part of who we are. They're an extension of us. Ever since we picked up a stick to reach a higher branch, we've extended our reach with our tools. And first it was physical reach. Now it's already mental reach. I can take a device out of my pocket and access all of human knowledge. That makes myself smarter already. And it's not yet in my body, but it's in my pocket. It's going to make its way in our bodies and brains. If you go out to 2045, the machine portion of the intelligence of the human-machine civilization will be 1 billion times more powerful than the biological portion. That means that we will have expanded the intelligence of our civilization 1 billion-fold. That's such a profound transformation that we call it the singularity.
Is it possible to know what happens after that?
We can talk about some aspects. I think some things will remain the same, just amplified 1 billion-fold. We can already see tremendous expansion of human knowledge. 200 years ago, one person could know all of science, because science was just science. But now there's thousands of fields of science, and one person can't even know all the knowledge in even one of those narrow fields. And so human knowledge has exploded already. And that's going to continue. The only way it can continue is for us to make ourselves smarter by merging with machine intelligence. So it's going to be an explosion of science and music and art and all the things that the human brain does.
You talk about spiritual machines, the transcendence in machine intelligence. What is that?
We start with the observation that a neuron is a machine, can be modeled by a machine. We've already done that. And so if one neuron is a machine, then 100 billion neurons, which is the human brain, is a complicated machine. But ultimately we'll be able to recreate that as well. And these machines won't just be good logic puzzle solvers or knowledge finders the way they are today. In fact, they're already superior to us in terms of doing mathematics and solving logical problems. They will have emotional intelligence. That's actually the most impressive thing we do. It's not a matter that the human brain can solve problems and that there's sort of a sideshow of emotional intelligence. The emotional intelligence, like being funny, getting the joke, expressing a loving sentiment, that's the cutting edge of human intelligence. That's the most impressive and complicated thing that we do. But it also takes place in the human brain. And when I talk about recreating human intelligence in a machine and passing the Turing test, I'm talking about mastering that as well. So these machines will claim to be sad and happy or mad or angry or just the way humans are. Now, machines can do that already, but we don't believe them because they don't have all the subtle cues that we associate with human intelligence. These machines in the 2030s, when they claim to be, I'm mad at you because you said you were going to do such and so and you didn't do it, we'll believe them because they will have all the sort of subtle cues and complexity of human intelligence, and it'll be all mixed up. You'll have biological humans, but they're 99% machine intelligence.
So machines will have emotions, but what about spirituality?
That humans are capable of spirituality, these machines will be. If you believe that humans can have spiritual experiences, they're having spiritual experiences in their brains. There's nothing mystical going on. The whole idea of mystical doesn't make sense because either something's real or it's not. If it's real, then we can understand it and recreate it. So these machines will also be capable of spiritual experiences to the extent that humans are. The real key to a spiritual machine is a conscious machine. When we talk about the soul of a person, we're really talking about their consciousness, their subjective experiences, the fact that they feel longing and sadness and that they're upset if somebody they love dies, or they're happy at some good news. I mean, that's what we consider to be their spiritual existence. So philosophically, we can't make a scientific demonstration of consciousness because consciousness is not a scientific concept. A synonym for consciousness is subjectivity. A synonym for science is objectivity. There's a conceptual gap between subjectivity and objectivity. We can look at an entity and see how it behaves. We can even look inside its brain and see how it's operating and if it has feedback loops just like a human being, and if the methods going on inside its brain are similar to what goes on inside a human brain. That's an objective analysis, but we can't really experience its subjective experience any more than I can experience your subjective experience.
So when a machine passes the Turing test, it will be considered conscious. Tell us, what is the Turing test?
The Turing test was devised by Alan Turing in 1950. It's a way of telling whether a machine is operating at human levels, and it has really held up the test of time. You have a human judge. There's a lot of debate as to what is a human, but a human judge interviews the computer and a human over what he called teletype lines. You can think of it as instant messaging. So the judge can't see the computer and the human, and he or she interviews the two subjects, or maybe there's 5 of them, and asks various questions. Well, what movie have you seen recently? What did you think of the motivation of the main character? And if after some period of time, he didn't specify, but let's say a few hours, the judge can't tell who the humans are and who the machines are, then we say the machine has passed the Turing test. There are Turing tests run every year among humans and computers. And so far, no computer has passed the Turing test, but they all get scores, and the humans are kind of up here, and the machines are down here, but the machines are moving up. The humans are kind of staying fixed. That gap is shrinking. According to one such test, if the computer can fool the judges 30% of the time, it's considered to have passed the test. In the last test, it fooled the judges 25% of the time. I actually think 30% is too easy. I think it should be 50 or 60%. But they're getting better. And by 2029, I believe they will pass the Turing test, because we really will understand human intelligence. And so they will be indistinguishable from human intelligence. But it's not going to be an alien invasion of intelligent machines to compete with us. We're going to merge with this technology, and we're going to make ourselves smarter. That's always been the purpose of our tools.
There's a lot of resistance to that idea.
So you asked the question, is it enough for a computer to pass?
Yes.
Is it enough for a computer to pass the Turing test to be considered conscious? I would say yes. I mean, that's my philosophical belief. That's not a scientific demonstration. There is no scientific demonstration of the consciousness of another entity. My sort of political prediction or psychological prediction is that biological humans will come to believe that these machines are conscious. They will be convinced when the machine says, I'm really happy at this, I'm angry at that, will believe that they are having that conscious experience. Just the way we don't generally believe it now when a character in a computer game, which is a computer software program, says, I'm angry. You don't really believe it yet because it doesn't have the richness of personality and the depth of language understanding that humans have today. That gap is going to go away. We will believe that they're conscious. And it's not going to be a clear distinction. Okay, this is a machine, this is a human. You're going to have these, most biological humans will be enhanced with computer intelligence, and ultimately they will be mostly computer intelligence.
You wrote that the Earth, with the new technologies that are coming, will be able to support 10 billion people. But if we are immortal, if we become immortal, we will stop reproducing?
Well, we can go far beyond 10 billion. If we look at the resources that humans need, all of these will be provided by these exponentially growing information technologies. Larry Page, the co-founder of Google, and myself just did a major study for the National Academy of Engineering on energy and identified solar energy as growing exponentially. It's been doubling every 2 years for the last 20 years, so it's doubled 10 times. It's only 8 doublings to go for it to meet 100% of the world's energy needs. Then you might say, yeah, but do we have enough sunlight to go around? We have 10,000 times more than we need. We only have to capture 1 part in 10,000 to meet all of our energy needs. And there are very credible plans to do that over the next 20 years. The same thing is true of new emerging water technologies. There's lots of water, but most of it's either salty or polluted. But there are new technologies that are ultimately will be very inexpensive and decentralized that can clean up that water. Dean Kamen's water machine, in fact, today, with some further development, for just a few $1 billion could meet all of the water needs of Africa. So these are emerging technologies. There are new food technologies that can be grown in factories, including in vitro cloning of animal meat without animals, hydroponically grown plants that ultimately can provide very high quality organic food at extremely low cost because they will be information technologies. Nanotechnology will be able to create physical products by reassembling molecular fragments at very low cost. So I can email to you an information design, and you can use your desktop nanofactory to create a solar panel, a module for housing, all the different things that you need. Then people say, but we don't have enough land to support people. We actually have plenty of land. Try taking a train trip across the United States or across China. It's all empty. And we can, in fact, house people. If we have nanotechnology to create very efficient housing to support a very large number of people. So, and the population's not going to grow that quickly. Even if we eliminate the death rate, the doubling time of the biological population is still going to be 10 to 15 years. The doubling time of the power of these technologies is 1 year or less, so it'll more than be able to keep up with it. We can support growth of the human population well through the 21st century, even if we dramatically reduce the death rate, and really provide actually for a very high quality of life, because the same technologies that are going to provide substantial expansion to human longevity are also going to provide substantial expansion of resources, water, food, housing, physical things that we need for our lives.
So we'll keep making babies even though we are immortal, right?
Old methods, old technologies linger on. They go into antiquity. We still have horse and buggies and mechanical typewriters and vinyl records, and they don't go away instantly. We'll have other ways of reproducing ourselves, but
what about sex? It will be separate from reproduction. Tell me about sex in the future, especially the virtual sex.
Well, what is sex like today? Is it only done for reproduction? Almost well over 99% of the sex is done for intimacy and communication, relationships, sensual pleasure, for all kinds of reasons other than reproduction. And we've already separated, to some extent, the biological function from these communication, social, and sensual functions.
But describe how it's going to be.
Well, for one thing, we'll have sex in virtual environments. Now, there's a lot of sex already in Second Life, but it's requires a little bit of imagination, because it's really what you experience is just the sound and visual image of your avatars having an interaction. In the future, virtual reality will be full immersion. It will feel like your body is in a virtual environment. And it could be the same body you have in real reality or a different body, but you'll be walking around. The way that will work, the nanobots will go into your brain. They will expand your intelligence. They'll interact with your biological neurons. They'll be on the internet. But they also could shut down the signals coming from your real senses, your eyes, your ears, your skin, replace them with the signals that your brain would be receiving if you were in the virtual environment. So then to your brain, it feels like you're in that virtual environment. You go to move your arm, it doesn't move your real arm, it moves your virtual arm, which could look like your real arm or it could look different. And so you can be an actor in these virtual environments. And the environment can be different, just like choosing a different website. Some will be like earthly environments, like walking on a beach or the Taj Mahal. Some could be imaginary environments that don't exist on Earth or couldn't exist on Earth, that are fantastic environments. You can choose different bodies with different environments. A couple could become each other and take on each other's body, or you could just become, take on the appearance of some movie star or whatever you want, and then you'll have interactions with other people, just like you do today on Second Life, but it's only visual and auditory. In the future, it will be tactile. You touch another virtual person, you'll feel them, and so you can engage in sensual experiences, from shaking hands to having a sexual experience.
So we are going to be immortal, and we can take any shape. We're going to be like gods.
Well, there's an interesting discussion about immortality. It's not necessarily the case that software lives forever. It can transcend the hardware that it's on. Right now, our software runs in our brains. So and the software is built into the shape of the brain and the connections and so on. But when the hardware crashes, the software dies with it. We have that idea, call it death. We don't have that idea with our machines. We can already see that the software has a separate life from the machine. You back up the software, you can smash the machine, and then you recreate the personality of the machine by just loading the software in another machine. The whole pattern of connections we have in our brain and neurotransmitters and ion channels, that's all information. When we can capture that and recreate it, we will become just like the software on our machines today. And it won't necessarily die when the hardware crashes the way we do now. But that doesn't mean it's immortal. Suppose you forget about some word processing program and you go back to it 25 years later, and it's a program written in WordStar. There's no copies of WordStar around and no computers to run them, and the operating systems don't exist, and the help desks don't exist anymore. And try recreating that software program. It's pretty much dead because you forgot about it. The lesson is that software lives only if you care about it. That's pretty much true of our lives today. If people don't care about themselves, they don't tend to live very long. But that will very literally be the case. We will have to maintain ourselves. You can't just forget about, your software files for 20 years and come back and you'll find that it's disintegrated. It doesn't run anymore. Nobody's kept track of it. Nobody backed it up. It doesn't run on the latest hardware. So that's actually kind of a moral lesson, that software lives if somebody cares about it. And when we become software, we will live if we care about ourselves. So software doesn't necessarily live forever, but we do have more control over it. And we will transcend the sort of hardware limitations we have now, where our software, our mind file, which is a file of information, that is what it is. But right now it sort of runs on this hardware that has all kinds of limitations. It ages, it gets dysfunctional, subject to all kinds of diseases, we'll ultimately be able to transcend all of that. And as to, where does it come from and how does it evolve, we can't answer all of those questions. That's why we call it the singularity. We're making a
horizon, right?
Yeah. It's a metaphor borrowed from physics where you have this event horizon around a black hole that's very hard to see beyond. And there's a lot of interesting discussions. Can you, in theory, see inside a black hole? And it's a long, complicated discussion. But the point is, it's very hard to see beyond that event horizon. So it's hard to see beyond the singularity because it's in some ways so different from life today that it's hard to see beyond. But I think some of the things we care about today are going to remain the same. Most of what we care about today is information. If you go back 100 years, most people did physical work. Most people today do mental work. They're journalists creating journalism stories, or they're writing something, or they're creating information about financial products, or most people create information. And that will continue to be the case. And knowledge, human knowledge, is growing exponentially. The doubling time, I think, has been measured at about 14 months. So human knowledge doubles every 14 months. And so you go out 50 years, we're going to be caring about the same thing, but it'll be that much more complex. We'll have many more types of music and art and science and technology, and we'll be arguing about similar kinds of things. But we'll have...
So instead of God creating the universe, it's going to be the universe through us creating God.
That's about as close to God as you can imagine. Anything we've said about God would apply to the universe waking up in this way, but it's still not infinite. It's vast. It's trillions of trillions of trillions of times greater than we are today, but it's still not infinite. So that's why I say evolution is a spiritual process, because it moves towards greater complexity. It moves towards all the attributes that we attribute to God: intelligence, creativity, beauty, love. All of these things grow at an exponential rate. God has been described as having those attributes at an infinite level. Even at this one, we can expand to the rest of the universe. We won't be infinite, but it'll, from our perspective today, it certainly will seem that way.
Thank you. That's great. That's wonderful.
Visiting time is over, Mr. Robbins.
Okay.